So I'm Catherine Manu. I'm here with Park Hopper Daily with our correspondents Anita Boyer and Joe Pallister, who just returned from a 2-month honeymoon at Walt Disney World. Now, normally, us Disney fans hear 2-month honeymoon at Walt Disney World, and we're like, wow, that's amazing. What a perfect honeymoon. But of course, we are in 2020, now in 2021, in the COVID world, so it's not so simple, is it? So we thought for one of our first podcasts and YouTube videos, we would just talk to Anita and Joe about what their experience was. So thanks, guys, for doing this. This is really great.
Of course, this is very exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is great.
We've had a lot of Instagram followers on our Park Hopper Daily ask a lot of questions about their experience. So we just thought this was a good place to answer those questions. So first off, I just wanted to ask about your general travel experience heading down to Walt Disney World. How did you travel? What did it feel like? What were your expectations? And what was the eventual reality?
We flew down from Islip. That part was fabulous. The Islip Airport has been known for being very easy to get through, not too many people, especially when you book like the Disney flight, the 5 or 6 a.m. Departure time. So we took that flight. That was great. I was feeling so good. I had my N95 mask on. I had my face shield. I had my onesie. I was like, I am protected.
Yeah, the plane wasn't crowded at all either.
We had like the full row, not just like the 3 seats, like 6 seats to ourselves. But then we got off the plane at MCO, and that was a whole opposite experience. And because of that experience, and because of the fact that we needed a car as well, once we got back home, we actually bought a car in Florida to drive home because we did not want to deal with the Orlando International Airport.
Yeah, it was very crowded, and there were a lot of people not wearing masks.
Yeah. And even though they were like sitting, it wasn't so much people walking around without masks, they were mostly sitting, but they were sitting right. I mean, there was no distancing. There was no possibility for distancing. So we just felt like it was way too crowded, and just the overall vibe in Florida was kind of anti-mask, anti-science, anti-reality. So that was, no offense, I guess.
Which, let's face it, like, pre-COVID, it's one of the reasons, we go to Walt Disney World is to like escape reality. But, obviously in COVID, especially coming from New York, I think as a state, we've been taking this very seriously from the beginning because we were the epicenter of the pandemic when it first started in the spring. It's just a very different experience now. So in terms of driving back home, what was that experience like? Because there is a big debate for people who are traveling. Do I travel via air? Do I travel via car? Especially when you're coming from a long distance like New York, where it's a 24-ish hour car drive.
It wasn't bad, actually. I thought it was going to be worse, but we were smart about splitting the driving. We said we were going to do 4-hour shifts, but we basically did like 8-hour shifts and then a couple of shorter shifts towards the end. And it worked out well. It was comfortable. It was fun. We felt safe. It wasn't stressful.
Yeah, so. But one of the most important things that I just want to say, and this was something that I had spoken with a friend about, because I was really adamant about, how much better it would be to drive. And they were like, yeah, but I have kids and they're going to need to use the bathroom a lot. And I can't necessarily, how do you get through that? Like sometimes maybe higher risk. There's a lot of information out that shows that flying is actually safer, and I did feel very safe on the flight. It was the airport itself and the thought of having to wait in MCO for the flight. It was one thing to be able to just charge right through, grab bags and leave, but to know that like I get anxious about flying, and I usually get there obnoxiously early anyway. So I'm like, do I want to sit in this airport for an hour and a half? Like, no, I don't feel safe doing that right now. So for us as two adults traveling and being able to split the time. I mean, we made it back in 18 and a half hours. We like pulled over for a couple of hours just to rest from, I think, like 2:30 to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily something that everyone would do. I mean, I would recommend finding a safe hotel that you trust. Pay more to know that it's like properly cleaned and you're not going to get sick or murdered.
Good things.
But it's hard. A lot of the questions that I got while we were away, it's like I can answer for us and I can tell you our experience, but everyone's family situation is different, and that's why there are so many. It's so important to get the information out about what it's like, because everyone has to make the decision for themselves.
Absolutely. So now going into this trip, what was the conversation that you had between each other about, like, is this a good idea? What are we doing? How will we be judged?
Yeah,
we're both enablers.
Oh yeah. Well, but this trip in particular is a trip that has been planned, canceled, replanned, tweaked, adjusted. It even got changed a few times mid-trip. Like we would be like, this resort really, we didn't feel it. We're gonna switch here or spend a little bit more time at the Airbnb. So I like the number one thing that I learned in 2020 for travel is be flexible and just be patient with yourself, and know that one day you're going to watch the news and it's going to make you never want to leave your house again. And then one day you're going to watch the news and be like, are we going to be in this situation for the next 3 years? And I need to live my life. It's a kind of, you got to go back and forth with that. We traveled for a total of 54 days. We got tested while we were down there. We got tested since we've gotten back. We're negative. So, and I don't think that is 100% because we didn't eat inside and we followed the distancing and we wore a mask. I think that is also a lot of luck, and we got lucky. And I don't want to glaze over that fact at all. Like, there was a risk for us to travel. We, after many months of planning, replanning, figuring out life, we decided that it was worth it for us to take the risk, both physically and perceptionally.
Well, we also, before we left, we looked into a lot of forums about people, Disney travelers, and we were just assessing like what their take was on how safe it was. And basically, the majority of people said that it's very safe there. They're very strict about masks. They're very strict about distancing. So we felt pretty good going in that they had the right approach. And it's only, was it 35% capacity?
Yeah, I think that was the maximum, was 35% capacity, which felt a little crowded.
Yeah, well, the hub around Magic Kingdom was always ridiculously crowded, no matter what. But overall, it felt good. And if anything looked like it was going to be too crowded or risky, we just decided, okay, let's leave. We don't need to go there. We don't need to go to that section of the park. We don't need to do that ride. And we didn't eat inside. A couple of places we ate inside, but it was the larger, more spread out restaurants. And they were very, very cool about, we told them up front, say, listen, we don't eat inside, so we're really nervous about this. And they said, you could take a look at where we're going to seat you. If you don't like it, we'll find another spot. And if you don't feel comfortable, that we're fine with that. So they were very accommodating. So that was
there
good.
Was no like, you'll be charged your $10 late cancellation fee.
But that's Disney, right? Like, I mean, they generally, even pre-COVID, try to bring customer service to the next level and take care of people, at least for the most part. But it's interesting. I think that there can be a misconception about people here.
Allergies, by the way. I don't have COVID. I just got tested yesterday, but I'm having an allergic craziness right now. So I'm like, no, we don't have COVID. That looks great.
So anyway, but what I was saying is, I think there's a misconception about 35% capacity, right? So you're saying that sometimes there are places where that still felt busy. I think people hear 35% capacity, and in their minds, they think 35% capacity from their last time that they were in the parks. But they're talking about 35% of 100% capacity.
Yeah.
So for example, like my family and I have traditionally traveled in September and January when we go to Walt Disney World. it was probably at 35% capacity then. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
wasn't like, it wasn't tumbleweeds rolling down Main Street. Although I have, spoken to you guys and to other people who've been down there that have experienced, especially at rope drop, tumbleweeds in the theme parks. So, all right, so let's get to your trip and your experience. So, resort stays. You stayed in a lot of places. From what I understand, you were trying to check off all the places you had never stayed before.
Yes, and we almost did it.
Almost.
And just a little backstory, because one of the questions that I get more than any question, I think, in my life is, how do you go to Disney? How do you stay at these resorts? Anyone can go online and see how expensive they are. I'm a dance teacher, not like a hedge fund manager, but I travel like a hedge fund manager. And here's how. I made a very dumb investment, like irresponsible, should have bankrupted me. I 10 out of 10 don't recommend. I bought the Disney Vacation Club when my main job was working the box office at Guildhall. And let me tell you, that was like, I enjoyed working it, but it's not the kind of job where it's like, oh, I have all this extra money because I live in the Hamptons and I make $15 an hour, and now I'm gonna buy the Disney Vacation Club.
Just buy DVC.
So like, I am reaping the benefits now because I just really hustled and like worked super hard to get it paid off. And then, Joe helped, like, now that we're together, like he helps pay it off too. So like investing in DVC 6 or 7 years ago, that's how I travel the way that I do now. But it was a lot of debt that I don't recommend unless you are ready for it. Like if you are like an actual grown-up with like a grown-up job, then yes. I also highly recommend like saving for it first. I was like, so wait, I can put this on my Disney Visa card? Sign me up.
You pay 24% interest on my DVC contract?
So I dug myself out of it, and there was like, I had a solid year of like getting out of debt.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So here I am on the other side, but we had a plethora of points for 2020 that were going to expire because we had banked and borrowed for our wedding. We were going to get married in Disney World in June, and then the world exploded. So that's kind of why we were able to go away for so long, because we were like, okay, we either are going to go and spend these points and have this time in Disney, or we're going to like lose it. And I couldn't bear the thought of losing my points and not being there. And
it wasn't just the points too. We also had started a savings account just for the wedding, because we knew it was going to be a Disney wedding. So every paycheck we would put a percentage towards that, and we worked really hard at building that up. And then when the world blew up and the Disney wedding was canceled, we were like, okay, what are we going to do? So we had a small ceremony in Hampton Bays, and the money that we saved on not having a Disney wedding we rolled that right into this trip. So
yeah, that I do 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah.
Teeny tiny wedding, massive epic honeymoon. Your guests will understand.
Absolutely.
They didn't mean to be at your wedding anyway.
Well, a great way to start your marriage. I mean, ideally not in a COVID world, but to be able to take that kind of time together, that's a really special thing that you'll always have. And that's just really cool. Okay, so let's talk about where you stayed.
Yes, we stayed at the Contemporary.
Did you make a list?
Oh, I got it all right here. We did all deluxe studios because it's just the two of us, and we kind of peppered in Airbnbs, and we do have one very close friend who we stayed with because they have been treating COVID the same way we have, and they're kind of like, they were our couple quarantine pod for Florida, which was really nice to have. And also they're completely Disney obsessed like us. So it made for very good times. But we stayed at the Contemporary. And I think that like sneak attacked up to number 2 for our favorite resorts. Maybe number 3.
Yeah.
We stayed at the Contemporary, the Riviera, the Beach Club, Boardwalk, Grand Floridian, Polynesian, and then we stayed at the Boardwalk
Vero
again.
Beach.
And we went to Vero Beach for a few nights.
Okay, so I have to ask, just so we can plan a future girls trip, where's the one place you haven't been?
We have not stayed at the new Copper Creek
Okay.
villas. And for as far as DVC goes, that's it. In previous trips, we've stayed at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
We were going to stay there, but there's so much closed, especially in Jumbo House, that we're like, if we have to like drive 30 minutes just to get quick service or gift shop, we need to be in very close proximity to a gift shop.
Well, we don't need to.
We need to.
Okay, so can you rank the resorts in a COVID world? Obviously, it would possibly change if you weren't in a COVID world, but can you rank your experience on this trip?
Yeah.
Like number one all the way down. And tell me why.
I think that for this time, we really liked Riviera, and it might sound weird, but it was because of the TV. They have the coolest, newest TVs that you can very easily, like just by going to a certain channel on the TV, you can sync it to your phone and then stream whatever you want to stream. So for most of the trip, like before 2021, for the 2020 part of the trip, you had to pick one park per day, and we'll talk more about that later. It was my favorite part of the 2020 part. But being able to feel like we were at home and watching our shows. I mean, I love the Disney shorts. I love the music of the home screen.
Yeah.
Like just walking in and hearing like that music and seeing the blue screen and the park hours, like that just felt so like, yeah, right? You know the feeling. But then because of COVID and one of our things that our first dance as a couple, it was theme songs to our favorite TV shows. Like we are a very we sit and we watch shows, and that is our sanctuary, safe, happy place. So being able to bring that to a room, and it was a struggle at the other resorts to get we were just watching stuff on our laptop, which I'm not complaining about watching West Wing on my laptop in the middle of Polynesian Resort. I am not complaining about anything. I'm just
complain about anything.
No complaints. Another cool thing about the TV at the Riviera, when you walk in and you turn it on, a screen comes up and it says "Welcome Boyer and Pallister family," which is great.
That was
that comes on every time you turn the TV on. It's not just the first time you come in.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah, they know you're there, which is a little scary.
If you go to Disney, don't worry, and you're worried about the vaccine because they're tracking you, honey, the mouse already knows. The mouse already knows.
Okay, so Riviera, what were some of the other things that you enjoyed about the resort in this time that we're experiencing?
The Skyliner. They keep it to one party per Skyliner. And I don't know if you guys have seen the photos of what they're doing on the monorail, but I will not go on the monorail if they're trying to squeeze 4 parties in. I was a little okay, 2, I guess, because they can't just have the line wrapping around the parking lot. But they added dividers in the middle now, so you can have people sitting on both sides and then standing. But these dividers, they're literally like this. I don't know what they think they're going to okay, you won't sneeze on me, but that's about it. I'm still going to be breathing your air. And so Skyliner was a definite.
It's kind of like when they announced with the rides that have a higher back recently, they were like, oh, well, so now we're going to load every vehicle, every seat, because there's this much space behind you, behind your head. And I was like, I just don't know how that actually is going to do anything except for psychologically.
Yeah. And Disney has not had the same Disney in the US has not had the same philosophy as like theme parks in Japan, where they ask you to scream in your heart, not out loud. And Disney people are still screaming, so like, I want the plexiglass.
Yeah.
I want the plexi.
Okay, back to Riviera. Were there other things about the resort that you felt, were particularly advantageous in a COVID world?
Um, really just like the feeling safe in the room, and that we could kind of create our like emulate our home life in the room with the TV, and the safety of the Skyliner to get to our favorite resorts or our favorite parks. It was also our favorite breakfast, but I feel like that's true in COVID times or out.
Yeah, yeah, it's nothing really COVID related. I
Well, they
think for
also
the
have the bar Riva and Primo Piatti. Is that right?
Yes.
So those
yeah.
two locations are also open air.
Oh, that's,
So
yeah,
as
that's
you were
true.
discussing not wanting to eat indoors, you have
Yeah.
a really nice outdoor option
It's
right there.
true. Having been there, we still weren't really comfortable. There maybe were a couple of tables, but here the problem with COVID times is that that also serves as like the pool bar. So there's a queue that goes
Mhm.
through the place. So like, yeah, it's like open air, and if that was it, it would be fine. But then you're like going to be sitting there, and someone's going to be standing there waiting to order right next to your table.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know if I might have, because some of the tables are like, for your safety, this is not available, and we did not like sit and eat there, so I can't really say from experience, but just from being in there online, I was kind of looking around like, oh, I'm in line, and I feel like I'm too close to these people without masks on. So I feel like if I was the one without the mask on, I'd be like, why are you in my bubble? So
Yeah.
open air, yes, it's great. And I'm sure if it's like a lower, like a slow time of day, but once you get a line for the bar, I wouldn't feel good um, hanging out in there too long.
Okay, so let's get to some of your other resort stays. What were some of your other favorite places, favorite experiences? Share some cool stories.
Um, the Poly was great. Uh, Probably the reasons why it wasn't so great, because like they're doing all that construction on the front. It's kind of dead. The lobby has a very strange vibe because they're not really using it as the lobby. They're using one of the other buildings, Pago Pago, for like the main check-in. So it didn't have the same energy. But in COVID times, that was actually
That was
nice
good.
because it was very empty and very quiet.
Yeah.
And
It's rare that the lobby in the Poly is empty. All those couches are always full around Maui, the statue of Maui. Everybody, people
Yeah.
are milling around taking pictures. Every time we went in, there was almost nobody there,
Yeah.
which was
That's
good.
amazing.
My
Because people
favorite.
go to the Polynesian, right? I mean, I know that when we vacation, we have yet to stay at the Polynesian, but we always make a special trip to the Polynesian
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
experience the lobby.
It's the best
you know,
smell. It
This
really is.
best smell, totally.
Yeah.
Also, Captain Cook's is one of my favorite quick service locations in all
Yeah.
of Walt Disney World.
So good. Fun story from the Poly. So if you have been following us on Instagram, you know that Joe and I like to wear our onesies when we're around the parks and the resorts and take funny videos and just be like grown-up children babies. So he has a baby Yoda. Well, sorry, not baby, the child. He has a Grogu onesie. I know some people get very upset if you
Let's
call
use
it
the
Yoda.
proper name. Come on.
Yes, the Grogu onesie from A Hot Topic, and he has the toy, like the child little plushie with the ears and everything. So we were making funny videos for their TikTok channel. We have a Baby Yoda, my name is TikTok channel for him and his onesie adventures.
Yeah.
And this was made before we knew the name was Grogu. So he's running into the Poly, and I'm filming him. And this girl, I'm not sure exactly, maybe she's like 13, 14, 15, around that age. She is walking out, and she has a Grogu, but dressed in like this gorgeous Santa Mrs. Claus kind of little outfit. And
The Grogu, not the girl.
the Grogu. Yeah. The Grogu is dressed in this cute little outfit. So Joe's running in as Grogu. She's coming out carrying this cool Grogu. I'm filming, but then I see her and I'm like, okay, cut. you're amazing. And then we like became friends on Instagram, and we were there for so long that they left. They were leaving the next day, but they were back for another trip while we were still there. And we met up at Animal Kingdom, and she had an Olaf outfit for Grogu. Like she is such a cool like fan, and I love her, like what she does to be creative with her Baby Yoda. And it was so fun. Like I just love connecting with people who share the same kind of quirky loves.
Yeah.
So
and I love that that's still happening at Walt Disney World, because that's something that I always enjoyed about going down there was, you know, for the real fans, there's like this camaraderie, and you meet
Yes.
people and you're like, you know, you're sharing stories in a way that you probably wouldn't, you know, in your normal life. You're not going to be like, oh, hey, you know, to somebody in Hampton Bays on Main Street. So I'm glad to hear that that is still happening. That's really cool.
I mean, you just have to stay 6 feet apart, which
Yeah.
everybody was really good about. So.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because that's also like one of my favorite things about going, and it was one of my favorite things about this trip in particular, were the like Insta-friend connections, to the point where there were some days that we were walking into the parks and people were like, hey, Joe and Anita, and we're like, hey, wait, how do you know my name?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we follow you on Instagram. I'm like, we're friends now in real life. This is so cool. And
yeah, that happened a bunch of times.
it was so great. And
yeah, well, y'all aren't exactly wallflowers.
I know. I was like, what gave it away? We have now a very good friend, Jamie, who we met via Instagram a few years ago, and I remember I think the first time we actually met him in real life was on your birthday.
Yeah.
So for Joe's birthday in
Epcot, right?
in 2019, I wanted to get, he was turning, what were you turning, 50? I shouldn't say. No, I wanted to get cast members to wish him a happy birthday as many years as he's been alive. So we went around to all cast members, and Jamie saw that we were doing that.
Ran out of cast members.
And he found it. So that's how we met. But then our pass got blacked out during this trip. He got us in. Like, that's how like our Disney Instagram friendship has grown. And we ended up spending a lot of Disney days there with him.
Yeah,
so like, I love the Disney community, and I am here to say that it's alive and well, even in the time of COVID.
Can I tell a quick my favorite story about the Polynesian?
Yeah.
All right. So years ago, when the Beatles broke up, they were going to sign the contracts to dissolve the Beatles, and they were supposed to all meet in New York City and sign the contracts. And apparently, John Lennon didn't like some of the language in the contract, so he just didn't show up. The other 3 Beatles were there to sign the contracts. And they were like, where is he? And his lawyer said, well, he's not happy with some of the language. So they rewrote the contract. But while they were rewriting the contract, he went down to Disney World, and he was staying at the Polynesian. And when they rewrote the contract, they sent it down to him at the Polynesian, and he literally signed the contract to dissolve the Beatles on the pool deck of the Polynesian.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah. And he stayed, he mainly stayed in the Hawaii building.
With the concierge level.
Concierge level.
That's what I was just going to ask. Like, do we know what room John Lennon was staying in?
I talked to an older guy who was working there, and he said he doesn't know which room, but he knows it was in the concierge, the Hawaii building.
Which I really want to stay in someday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's not deep.
When concierge returns.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the theme parks, because I'm sure that's where a lot of people have questions. I mean, traveling to Walt Disney World and staying in a resort with your own balcony, like you said, in a way you can kind of create your own home safe space. You know, they've instituted really strict cleaning policies. You can deny housekeeping. So there's ways to really create your own bubble in your resort pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Obviously, walking into a theme park, totally different experience.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that was like. What was your first theme park, and how did that feel?
What was the first park?
Our first park, after we had a very bad first day. Like, there were issues at our Airbnb, major issues with our car rental.
Issues,
We were just, I was ready to just be like, forget it. Let's just stay in the room. And Joe was like, we got to go. So we had a park pass for Epcot. And just the second that we got close enough to actually see Spaceship Earth in the distance, I had to just be like, I can't. I was like weeping, like streaming tears. I think I actually went like live on Facebook, and I was like, I don't know why. I just feel like I need to capture and share this moment of finally being home, because for me, the pandemic was real when Disney said they were going to close. And I was teaching a class at the studio without masks with a group of, kids who'd been in school, and all of a sudden they're, on a water break when, no one's supposed to be on their phone. Everyone was on their phone, and we got the news, myself included. I'm not gonna pretend like I don't check in. And all of us were just like, wait, like Disney's closing? So just to that moment of being back and seeing everything, and for whatever reason that night was not busy, so it felt really good to be able to be in the space and not be around a whole bunch of people. I think because we were showing up like the last hour that they were open. And just like I honestly can't remember anything else about that night except for seeing the Spaceship Earth from the distance and just knowing that I couldn't handle it, and then walking in that ding ding of the magic band, right? And then like really just trying, like I got in, and then I was just like just weeping. So it was definitely like a palpable, very real physical, emotional reaction to being home.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. It was
a lot. It felt surreal.
It felt, because then I was like so happy to be there, but so worried, is this stupid? Are we gonna like get sick or get someone else sick and die because we're here? But we're here and we need to live and we need to like have our moment. But what are people going to say back home? But it's our honeymoon. It's okay. But so like this constant, so like the whole, I will say like while there were pockets and days of just total relaxation and bliss, I think the best way to describe the emotion of being there, and especially in the parks, was just like a low hum, white noise of just a little stress. And that didn't go away until we walked back into our apartment. And then when we actually got back home at the very end, like after driving and everything, we opened the door to our apartment and we're like, oh, this is what it feels like to be relaxed. We forgot.
Yeah, I can get that, just like kind of this, there's always going to be this constant feeling of unease to a certain extent, no matter how much fun you're having or how well Disney is handling safety and requiring masks and social distancing. It's always going to be in the back of your head. And I think that's important for people to know who are planning, a trip. I know I've advised a few friends who have never been to Walt Disney World to not go right now, more because I just don't want their first experience at the parks to have that taint on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
It
is what it is, and it's you have to be able to, if you've been there before, you can kind of compartmentalize and be able to pick out the things that are make you feel good and that are safe. But if it's your first time there, I don't think it would be. It would still be fun because it's Disney World, but it would be not. I don't think it would be the ideal.
Imagine, like, why is it that we love going back to Disney? Like, yes, there's a lot of like this stuff that's now, but it's the memories, it's the nostalgia, it's what it brings back. So is that what you want your imprint, your first trip to be? Is that going to be your nostalgia moment, like when you're going back in, like, oh, I remember being here and not being able to be around anyone. I remember being here and dying and suffocating in my mask. Oh yeah, I'm like, I don't know if but I'm torn on it too, because if you've never had the experience, you also have the benefit of not knowing what's not there. So it might not feel, I mean, the mask definitely and the distancing definitely, everyone's going to feel and experience that, but they're not going to be like, oh, I miss the acrobats in Paris and the people from around the world at all of the parks and this show and this show and this, like they're not going to have any of that, which fans are having now, and kind of struggling with going back to the parks with seeing everything that's not there and kind of not necessarily complaining or, well, if you're on a Disney
I was
Facebook
about to
group,
say.
that's all you hear is whining and complaining. Like, there is nothing more entitled than a, not me, I hope, ever, if I ever get this way, punch me in the face, but there's nothing more entitled than a Disney Vacation Club member behind a computer in a Disney Vacation Club Facebook page. Just, I'm sorry guys, like, get it together.
But I think also if you're somebody like the two of you or me who's gone many times, if you're traveling during COVID, where like you said, you have to be flexible, and if you're going to be safe, you're probably not dining indoors. There are probably rides that you're avoiding. There's
Yeah.
probably,
Definitely.
and I think that if it's your one and done trip or your first time, you kind of have that I need to do everything
Yeah.
mentality. When you go regularly, you can just kind of sit back and enjoy atmosphere.
Absolutely. Which is
And
the best, like, that is their 100%, I would say. As 100% as it can be in COVID. Like, just being able to walk down Main Street was amazing. Just being able to get lost in Animal Kingdom on the trails and everything, amazing. Just walking around the World Showcase as soon as we got past that bottleneck in Mexico, amazing. Our favorite street in Hollywood Studios is, I always get it wrong. Whatever
is
the
it Buena Vista?
where
No, Sunset.
Hollywood
Oh, Sunset, yeah.
yeah, Sunset to Hollywood Tower Hotel, amazing. All of that stuff was definitely there, but you're so right. Like, if it was about getting on Hollywood Tower Hotel and not just walking down the street, I would have been miserable because we've never felt safe going on a ride where it's literally just a tiny little box.
Yeah, we didn't do Tower of Terror.
And so much screaming. We're like, unless they could get, and we're not going to be those. There were plenty of guests who were like, no, I need this, and it's like, if you need that, then you need to wait until after COVID.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to just go on and dictate how Disney's going to operate their system. You have to do what you're comfortable with within their system.
And I think that any of us who are paying attention to the news know that these cast members have been through enough. And so unless you're being super nice to cast members, please don't go to Walt Disney World. They just don't need any more stress in their lives. So what was your, for each of you, your favorite park during COVID?
Joe, you go first, because I need to think.
I know, it's tough, right?
My favorite park.
Where were you able to kind of relax the most and kind of lose yourself the way that we like to kind of lose ourselves when we're in the parks?
Going early to Hollywood Studios is probably my favorite. It got a little bit congested later in the day, and not always. It was weird. It was hit and miss there. I'm torn between that and Epcot, because Epcot, there's so many places to just go off to the side and sit and watch and be clear of a crowd. But I just like the general vibe of Hollywood Studios and the different parts of it. I mean, obviously Epcot, it's around the world and there's all these different countries. But there's really a big difference between Sunset and, Batu. Like, it feels like you're in like completely different places. So I would probably say Hollywood Studios earlier in the day, before it got to be a level of congestion that I wasn't really comfortable with.
Okay.
And I would say, just for this trip, I really loved Animal Kingdom. And that, except for a couple of days where it was remarkably busy, I would say every time that we went, no matter what time of day, it was easy to manage.
Yeah.
And even, I feel like, when it hits 100% capacity, like pre-COVID busy times, like, no one's going on not no one, but the crowds are not going to the Maharaja Jungle Trek or the Gorilla Falls expedition. So it was really nice to be able to, like, kind of know that we could escape the crowd and see all these cool animals and do a thing that we usually just rush right past. I felt like COVID times really made us slow down And because we weren't worried about going on Flight of Passage or like Expedition Everest, we really were looking at what else is in each park, not the big crowd attractions, but just the extra little things that we usually skip or don't care as much about.
Yeah.
So that Animal Kingdom, I mean, it's not my favorite park, and it wasn't my favorite park, you know, but just for COVID times, I think it has the most to do that you can escape the crowds and still have a really cool experience.
Yes.
But I wanted to hear, what were your favorite attractions during this trip?
I really loved Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I loved the fact that they moved their queue really outside. There, you do have to still walk inside, but the way that they're managing who's allowed inside, it's not like you're just standing there and waiting. Like they really make you wait outside, and then when it's you know, you just kind of walk through. So even though you're inside with people, you're not standing still and waiting. And then that energy is all the way up through until you're on the ride. There's dividers.
Plexiglass dividers.
Not just like a little, like a tall, ooh, hey girl, a tall plexiglass divider. And I mean, it's the same building as Great Movie Ride, and it's, you know, the really big rooms. It didn't feel as like enclosed in any of the spaces. And there's, I don't know if they added it or if it's always been that way. It feels like it's always been that way, but there's a lot of wind, like as an effect to make you feel like you're actually there. So I felt like that was nice. They have a lot of ventilation and airflow going on inside. So Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Was this your first time doing that attraction?
Yes. So I think that we actually, because the pre-show has the part that I knew about before it opened, they gave us, when I was at the D23 Expo in 2017, they showed us like a little preview sample of like what was coming. And I feel like I've been so excited to see that again, because just watching the video of it, I like cried how magical and amazing it was. And like doing the ride, I was like, okay, where's that thing? And then it didn't happen. And then they told me that the pre-show was like one of the coolest parts. That they can't do it because you're just standing in a room watching a screen. I'm like, dang it. So I'm really excited for that to come back post-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure all pre-shows have basically, except for maybe a shorty right before Flight of Passage, but you're in, you know, you're only
like
in a
open
room.
doors and
Okay. Joe, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with Rise of the Resistance. I love that ride.
You guys got on Rise.
Yeah, we got on 4 times. Yeah.
They did the same thing. I mean, you weren't like standing and waiting inside. They had like so spread out and like checkpoints within the inside part to make sure that everyone was really spread out. And they like made like you're almost in like a little British telephone booth in any part that you're actually inside with people. If you go on, don't be mean to the cast members, but if you can request yellow, try to request yellow. It's definitely the new best spot, especially for the pre-show stuff.
Yeah. We got that a few times.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to wrap up this first segment for Park Hopper Daily with Anita and Joe, but we're going to come back with a second video. And we still want to talk a little bit more about the theme park experience. We're also going to talk about dining, and we have some questions from our Instagram followers. So thanks for joining us for this session. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. And if you can like and comment this video down below, we'd really appreciate it. So thank you, and we will see you again soon.